Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a special Halloween edition of Tunnel Vision. I'm your USC head coach, Lincoln Riley, also known as your host, Jack Smith, joined in the studio by Ryan Abraham and Chris Trevino. We got our Halloween costumes on. It's a day before Halloween. USC coming off the heels of a big win out in Arizona, 45-37. Chris went. Ryan and I stayed here in Los Angeles, but we're going to break down the show or break down the game and kind of bring you guys through our special spooky Halloween show. But thank you guys for tuning in on all of the platforms. Leave your comments in the chat. As always, we can put them on the screen and make sure you guys are calling in for live callers. But guys, Halloween, USC won 45-37. How's it going?
It's pretty good. And everyone out there, we're live on YouTube and we should be live on Twitter. We're still working on getting the Facebook feedback, so sorry about that. And we will be taking live calls. 512-4-TUNNEL is the number if you want to call in. We'd love to take your call. We got some costumes. As you know, Jack is a dead ringer for Lincoln Riley.
Illegitimate son.
Illegitimate son?
Illegitimate son.
Yeah. He's too young to have a son as old as Jack, I think. But did everyone know what Chris is? Think, WWF back in the day. You want to give him the line?
You want me to do okay.
I want to do it, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's Macho Man Randy Savage. I'm coming for you, Hulk Hogan.
That's all I got. My voice is shot from the Arizona desert.
We might need to fix your mic there a little bit.
Yeah.
Get it closer to your mouth. But, and mine's older. Now, Jack didn't know this one, so put in the comments if you know who I am. Yeah, so we got Daniel got it. Yes, it's from 1981, a TV show called The Greatest American Hero. It was a great one. It was like this awkward hero, Greatest American Hero.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, you don't know what it is.
Someone asked if you're dressed as a Ute, which I like that.
I have no idea. This was like the alien thing, but he was like flying around. He would like try to save people, but he wasn't very good at flying. So he could fly, but he just wasn't that good at it. He would crash into trees and things like that. But it was good. But yeah, we got a great show. Get to talk about a win. It was, had the Utah loss, bounced back. He had 2 weeks to kind of sit on it, just let it simmer. Lincoln Riley didn't seem very happy about it. He wanted to get out there and play right away. They go out to the desert, second straight road game. Whole bunch of dudes out. 2 best wide receivers out. Didn't expect to see Mario Williams not in there. Your best offensive lineman out. Your best defensive player maybe out, Eric Gentry. Crazy stuff. And USC comes away with a 45-37 victory over the spunky Arizona Wildcats. So I think it was good. I think you needed to get that road win. Lincoln Riley talked about how hard it is to win on the road. He's very proud of this win, as proud as any of the other wins. They're 7-1 right now. Jack was pointing out earlier, don't have to leave Los Angeles for the rest of, you can take a drive. You can Uber to the rest of USC games if you're somewhere here in SoCal. So that's nice. You don't have to do any more of these road trips and stuff. And of course, going over to Pasadena, that's like USC's second home. So being at 7-1, I know there's a lot of fans that are sort of upset. They don't like the way the defense is playing. They should have run the ball more, whatever it is, all the injuries, things like that. Looking at it now is like, hey, if you thought going into the season, Chris, 7-1, you're going to get to play a terrible Cal team and a terrible Colorado team before you get the rivalry games, like that's pretty good. I think you would sign up for that after going 4-8 last year.
For starters, I'm just going to take this off.
Okay.
It's I don't want to do this the entire.
You don't want to hold this.
I don't want to hold that the entire night. So let me just get reset right here. But he absolutely should be proud of this win, and the context of everything around this game with all the injuries. Both teams coming off bye week. I said multiple times that Arizona is a scrappy team, and it should have been, a fight. It was going to be a fight in Arizona Stadium, and with all those guys out, I mean, if you're kind of like thinking about it like you're complaining about it, and like in that sense, think about what this team would have done with all those players out like a season ago.
Yeah.
It would have been ugly. It would have been bad. this team at least fought back and likes playing on the road and really embraced everything that happened in that game, good or bad or atrocious, specifically at the end of the first half. They embraced all of that, and they came out and they punched and they scrapped and they took punches. But in the end, when the dust settled, they won, and that's what's most important. A win is a win is a win, and Lincoln Riley absolutely should be proud of the way this team played and the resiliency of those Trojans. And it was a fun game to cover. It was a wild game to cover. So much was going on. So many players were out, and just pregame was just the most I've ever had to tweet continuously, like, oh, this person's out, oh, this person's out, oh, this person's out. So going into it, it was going to be, I didn't know what was going to happen. You're down your two best receivers. You're using a bunch of guys that haven't really had to step up into that moment, and you're down your best offensive lineman. Mason Murphy's getting a start. You're kicking Jonah Monheim inside to a position he hasn't really played. You lose your left tackle in the second half. Eric Gentry is out, and that was something we anticipated. But to come up with all those question marks for this team going into that kickoff and to come out with the W is massive.
Yeah, it's good stuff. What do you want to do, Jack? Do you want to
just call him Lincoln the whole time?
Lincoln?
That's Coach Riley to you. I'm gonna make you run now. But I think starting with just kind of going through the timeline of the game. Obviously, you guys mentioned pregame. We expected guys like Jordan Addison, Eric Gentry to not play. Not really expecting Andrew Vorhees, and then definitely not expecting Mario Williams to not play for the Trojans. Let's start with early in the first half. USC playing without all those guys. We finally realized Mario Williams isn't on the field. You're seeing all these different receivers playing, and it's a lot of dink and dunk until you get that deep ball to Taj Washington. Maybe we just start with the first couple drives where USC, they're really just checking down all the way down the field, screens and short passes, running the ball, and then that huge one-handed touchdown catch for Dorian Singer. That's kind of how the game started off, and you kind of started to get the feeling this might be a game with all the guys USC has out, and if the Arizona wide receivers are going to keep making great plays like that.
Not having Mario in there, just real quick, you were there. The broadcast team didn't realize. They were like, he's not playing. And they're like, I think he played early on. They still in the second quarter, they were bringing up, I think he played early on and hasn't played. No one knew that wasn't going to happen. Lincoln Riley afterwards said that he tweaked something in pregame or whatever. But that was weird. Even watching the game on TV, no one really knew what was going on with Mario Williams.
Yeah, and I know there was a lot of talk on Twitter about it possibly being, is this like a suspension? Is this like a one-half suspension? That kind of deal. No, it was physical. I wrote about it in my game day ghost notes, some observations that I saw about it on the sideline. I was witnessing it. Something was up with Mario Williams. He was talking to the trainers. They were kind of working through something. He had tweaked something, as Lincoln Riley had said, and he was trying to, it seemed like he really wanted to play, and he was trying to convince them to let him proceed with warm-ups, but they were being ultra cautious with him, and that kind of. So from that tone on, I was like, is he going to play maybe very limited snaps? Or I did not expect it, not at all. So that was definitely a blow for the offense that was already down Jordan Addison. But to your point, Lincoln, what you kind of putting the ball in space, kind of those quick passes on the outside. I think it was just simply get those guys comfortable. Get them in a rhythm. This is a road game. You don't have Jordan Addison. You don't have Mario Williams. And just get them in a rhythm, get them comfortable. They're going to be playing a lot of snaps. Put the ball in their hands, get them in space, and let them, have those kind of one-on-one matchups with the Arizona cornerbacks. And we know this Arizona defense has not been very good. So, I think that's a matchup USC fans and USC staff loved seeing, putting the ball in space and letting them work. But I did notice this. It seemed like the deep ball wasn't really consistent and on the mark for Caleb Williams and this batch of receivers. It just seems like he's so much more comfortable. It doesn't seem he is much more comfortable throwing deep balls to a Jordan Addison, to a Mario Williams, and he just doesn't have that deep ball chemistry with Brendan Rice or Taj Washington. It's coming there with Taj, but a Kyle Ford, Michael Jackson, those guys, it's just not as clicky as the other two. So I think they were, they wanted to try to get that going, but it just wasn't working all the way. So I think that it was a good decision to kind of, make them short, dink and dunk it, make those short intermediate passes, and let those guys, get those yards after catch and win those one-on-one matchups.
Yeah, I was impressed with the way they used all the USC wide receivers when you're coming out. I mean, for Caleb Williams to have his career day, 411 yards, 5 touchdowns, 10 touchdowns over the road trip, the 2 games, without your 2 biggest targets, like how is something like that going to happen? I mean, obviously that means you got a lot of good backups, and it also means you have a good system, because if this was something, if this was last year, like that wouldn't happen. Like you lost your top 2 wide receivers. If when Drake London goes out of the game, those were your 1 receiver.
Well, we saw what
the whole offense went to nothing. So pretty impressive that he was able to put up those kind of numbers on the road with the backup receivers. And, my guy Kyle Ford, huge day, over 100 yards, had that touchdown, that 70-yarder. Taj Washington, man, he just has been making some great plays. And, it just shows how poorly he was utilized last year, I think, more than anything. But, getting Michael Jackson involved or Kyron Hudson and, Brendan Rice with his first, career touchdown, a lot of firsts. Mason Murphy makes his first start. It wasn't just that Vorhees was out; they had to shift the whole offensive line too. So all of that kind of adversity and things you had to overcome. And Caleb Williams has his career day. That was impressive to me. So yeah, that's when things got going. You sort of looked like, okay, the offense is going to work. Like you were worried maybe it's not going to be going, but Jack, early on in the game, you're like, oh, it looks like it's still going even without Addison and Williams.
Yeah, and I mean, we've given credit to Caleb Williams for working with some of these second and third string wide receivers, but we've also highlighted for the majority of the year that if you're a team that doesn't quite have the top end receiving talent that USC has, you'd take a lot of those second and third stringers as your first teamers. And I think a lot of them, as I mentioned to you before we started recording, is they all made plays. Like when they were called upon, outside of a couple drops from Brendan Rice, like I feel like there was no play that a wide receiver needed to make that they didn't. You had Kyron Hudson, obviously with a big first down, Michael Jackson, the one time they went to him, rushed the ball for 53 yards. You had Rice with a touchdown, Kyle Ford with a touchdown, Taj Washington with a big day. Like I literally don't think that there was a single play that they needed a wide receiver to make that they didn't, outside of a handful of, or a couple of drops. So I was really impressed with the way that the receivers played, on top of the way that Caleb Williams was able to find them and get the ball down the field without his 2 biggest weapons and 2 of the best weapons in the nation.
Someone tweeted out, I don't know who tweeted it, but they showed maybe Caleb Williams' best pass. Did you see this when he was rolling to his left?
The drop.
And the drop and you're like, you look at it, it's like, oh, it was out of bounds or it was tipped or whatever. When you watch the thing in slow motion, he's rolling to his left, throws an absolute dime, and I mean, literally hit him right here in the whatever the logo is for the Greatest American Hero. Like, it should have been a touchdown.
On the money.
That was an amazing throw, and add that into his 411 yards or whatever, but just pretty crazy. But yeah, he made a lot of great throws in this one, and for the most part, like Jack said, I think the receivers did a nice job. There was a couple that you would have wanted back, but they made plenty of receptions and plenty of good plays for him.
And just to rehash something I said on our sort of airport podcast, it boils down to 3 points for me. It's just, one, Caleb Williams, really, really talented, can make plays with anyone out there. Doesn't matter. 2, we talked about how deep and talented this wide receiver core is going into the season. Yeah, Mario Williams, Jordan Addison, the headliners, but Kyle Ford, former 5-star, Brendan Rice, that bloodline, really good. Wasn't utilized enough at Colorado. Taj Washington, former freshman All-American. So much talent with these guys, and to see it finally utilized was great. It was great to see. It's something that USC fans have been hoping for so many years, just to get somebody else involved, rotate those guys in. How many times have we heard rotation?
Right.
This one we've seen it this season, but this was the full effect of that, of seeing guys have that confidence of playing well and making plays. And the third point is coaching. You mentioned it with the Drake London last season, goes down, can't throw the ball, can't move the ball. Here, you lost your 2 best guys. Coach them up, get them ready, get them ready to make plays on the big stage in a big game. They did it. So props to the coaches, props to the players, props to Caleb Williams for making it work. It all gelled together.
Yep. Thank you. I mean, we were really trying to get a lot of our depth receivers to be ready. So I appreciate your compliments on my coaching.
He's doing Lincoln now.
Nice. Hey, everyone, real quick, hit the subscribe button if you're on our YouTube channel. Hit the like button. Like this feed for sure. Share it with your friends. We love doing that. And if you want to call into the show, you can call 512-4-TUNNEL.
And leave us comments. We need some questions to put up throughout the stream, and let us know who you're going to be dressed as for Halloween, because we want to know a couple more things from the first half before we get to the I don't even know what to call it at the end of the first half. Chris, you kind of got off the schneid a little bit with the predictions, and the fans helped you out. We had a Raleek Brown sighting and a Raleek Brown touchdown that finally got the bold prediction hit for you, Chris. So how about seeing Raleek in the game, and then how did that feel from the sideline, watching it and breaking your little tough streak on bold predictions?
Oh, for 20.
Over 20, and now I'm 2 for 30. They're 2 for 30.
No, you're 3. You were 1 for 25, right? And you got 2 more.
Did I get 2? What did I get?
You got 2 last night. I think 2.
2?
Yeah, someone put it in the thread. You didn't go back and look at the thread.
No, I never go back and look unless I know. So okay, I have to go back and look
They
at that.
gave you credit for 2. Yeah.
Okay, well I'll go back and look.
I can look.
But it felt nice to snap that streak, and thank you to the fans. If you missed it, I put out a tweet about I need help. I need help with the 5th pick. Let me know what I should do. I got way more submissions than I thought I would get, and a bunch of people. One of the common themes was Raleek Brown's going to score. Raleek Brown's going to score. A lot of people were like, Raleek Brown's going to score on special teams. He's going to take it to the house.
So it doesn't even count like it was like a fan one? I mean, not that doesn't count. So you went over. I can't find the thread.
Way to set me up to
Sorry,
fail
man.
on that. But yes, Raleek Brown scored, and then he was never seen for again. It was almost like Lincoln Riley read my predictions like, I got to throw him a bone here, and got him scoring. It's like, all right, Raleek, you're done. You're done. So
That was weird. He just came in and was like the touchdown
hey, but he
specialist.
scored. But he scored.
He did score there. I put in, so Chris was doing so bad. Both Jack and I put in some predictions too. I said they'd score under 49 or under. I hit that one. I said Arizona would win the middle 8, and they did because of what we're going to talk about soon. But I'll find your thread. Where was it? Don't read.
Wait, Lincoln made predictions too?
I did make predictions. I knew that Brendan Rice was going to score a touchdown, so I just kind of put that in there. But yeah, I think I only went 1 for 5.
200
Obviously,
yards rushing. 200 yards rushing.
They rushed for 200 yards?
Yeah, I think so. Right?
USC didn't rush for 200 yards. There's
did
no
not?
way. Oh, I guess if you got the Michael Jackson, it was a run.
Yeah, that was a
53-yard run. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think so. Dye went for 113. Caleb, I believe, rushed for. I think it was somewhere in the 20s. Because one of my
I
predictions.
forgot to get a stat book at the end of the game. I was down in the media room, so I didn't grab one.
Yeah, so you got 200 yards rushing, and the Raleek Brown scores a TD. I got Addison and Gentry wouldn't play. USC scores 49 or under, and then the middle 8. So my first attempt, I beat you.
All yours are very negative.
And,
I did a lot of negative ones.
and a little bit easier.
Do you think that was easier?
Definitely the Addison and Gentry not playing one.
Arizona gave up 49 points to Cal.
That's
and
true.
I predicted they would go, USC wouldn't score that many. Like,
That
I
one
think
was
that's
bold.
a pretty tough one.
That one's pretty bold. Oh, bless you. I
USC
hit
was
the
way better at the middle 8 than Arizona. I said Arizona would be better at the middle 8.
yeah. I hit the Brendan Rice touchdown. I missed on a couple. I mean, I had Mario Williams having I think I said over 150 yards and a touchdown, and he didn't end up playing. So
Big oof.
clearly, I didn't have enough inside information, even though I'm dressed as USC head coach Lincoln Riley. But let's get into something that made USC head coach Lincoln Riley very upset towards the end of the first half. Just one of the weirdest officiating, clock operating blunders I think we've ever seen. USC's moving the ball down the field. They get a deep pass, I guess an intermediate pass to CJ Williams from Caleb Williams. Looks like he gets out of bounds. They rule that he didn't get out of bounds, so the clock is still running. USC throws the ball deep to Brendan Rice. He's down as a first down, so the clock's supposed to stop. USC's trying to get on the ball to spike it. It's going to be 6 seconds. The ref, before they can even spot the ball, the clock runs out of time. Arizona leaves the field. The refs all confer, and I think we were all expecting them to say, the clock started running before we spotted the ball. We will the clock will resume on our signal. Please reset the clock to 6 seconds, and then USC would spike it, either go for it or kick a field goal, and that would be it. Instead, the ref said that's the end of the first half. Lincoln Riley went berserk, started yelling at the refs. Who, if you follow Chris on Twitter, they kind of just ran away at the end of the half. And Lincoln Riley said later that they admitted to their mistake. But just one of the weirdest sequences of events I've ever seen, and it's been a long time since I've seen something like that just left me completely befuddled of how that happened on a football field.
Yeah, I mean, it was from the home point of view when I was watching at home. This wasn't a judgment call. This was like just an egregious error. And when everyone I've heard talk about the game, this is the first thing they mention. And that's, And I think the Pac-12 studio show actually did a pretty nice job. They were talking about this is not what the Pac-12 needs. Like, you don't need this. Like, you don't need basically taking points away from USC because you screwed the ref screwed up. You're like, you have at least a field goal shot. No, you don't anymore because of what the refs did. Yogi Roth, Ted Robinson, like they were befuddled. And then when they go to the studio show, they're like, what the heck was that? Everyone was saying that. Lincoln Riley came back from a halftime, and Jordan Moore does the radio interview. I listened on the radio, and he was like, did you get an explanation? He's like, nope. I mean, he was mad. Like, Lincoln was saying, you were yelling at the refs. And it was crazy. And then just listening to like national, I listened to some national college football podcasts afterwards or commentary from like the Pac-12 guys like Canzano and Wilner, and they're just absolutely crushing this. And it's sort of like, on back-to-back weeks. Again, I don't think this is a conspiracy thing. I think it's just incompetency. There was a terrible call that helped USC that turned a field goal into a touchdown. So I think it's more just ref incompetency more than anything. I know a lot of USC fans said that's crap. I'm sorry. It's just I don't think they're good enough to be able to control a game. They're just really incompetent. But this one was just, it wasn't like, oh, we called targeting when it shouldn't have been or whatever, or we reviewed a play for 5 minutes that shouldn't have been reviewed at all. This was just completely like, we're starting the clock, but we're not letting you snap the ball. It was just like if an official came in and tackled somebody, it would be like on the same wavelength. So it was just so dumb and so terrible, but so very Pac-12.
Still waiting on that statement.
Yeah, I don't know. We haven't got a statement yet.
statement.
I think you will. Lincoln Riley said that afterwards, right? That they admitted that there was a mistake, and he was like, "Well, why didn't you review it? Like you review everything. They review, basic tackles and look at targeting or whatever." I don't know why they didn't stop it. Maybe pressure. You talk about this too. Arizona was like running off the field, and they were just like,
number one move you do, just run off the field.
We just like, oh, we can't do this. But yeah,
we're already in the locker room.
It was awful. I mean, it didn't change the outcome of the game. So I don't like the Utah stuff. I felt like changed the outcome of the game, but that's more of judgment calls. This is like just an absolute error of what you're supposed to be doing.
I did want to throw out. Let's say they don't mess that up super bad. Do they go for the field goal or do they go for the touchdown?
So you got to spike it.
You spike it. You have 4 seconds?
Probably 4.
4 or 5 seconds.
I think you could probably kick the field goal.
Okay.
I mean, he tried to kick a 56-yarder, which I didn't really. You're probably in that one.
He has the leg. I will make the argument that he has the leg. Dennis Lynch can bang it from 60 plus, but I don't know if he was nervous or he just rushed it.
He almost false started where he took a step a little bit before the ball was snapped, so then he kind of had to wait back. And at that point, once the ball was snapped, his rhythm was completely off. Because I was like, I'm kind of surprised they didn't throw any kind of flag on him false starting.
And there's one of those things too, like if I can like, oh, there's this, you're playing golf in some terrible hole, and it's like you have like 250-yard carry. Like, yeah, I can carry that, but like when I know I have to carry it 250 yards, like I'm probably duffing it somewhere. Like, yeah, he can. If it's a 46-yarder and he cleared it by 12 yards, like, yeah, that's awesome. But now it's a 56-yarder. Like, I think it's a different story, So I don't know. Like, I didn't agree with that one. I don't mind the onside kick thing when you had the extra 15 yards and stuff like that. Whatever, take a shot. I have no issues with that. I'm not going to look at the results and say, well, you shouldn't have done this. But I didn't like I didn't like not calling timeouts at the end of the Utah game. Didn't like kicking a 56-yard field goal. That didn't work out. I was fine with the onside kick, and that didn't work out either. I'm not worried about the results. I'm just like looking into it, like, why would you do that? And the 56-yard, I was just like, it didn't make much sense to me.
To answer your question, I think they would have kicked the field goal. I think it might have made more sense to go for it, considering that, get in the red zone. I guess if you're USC, you do. But most teams need to take advantage of the red zone possessions they're going to have. And I guess it is kind of, we know now that Dennis Lynch didn't have a great day, but at that point, he'd only missed the 56-yarder. So
I think they would have lined up, try to get him to jump, get a little bit closer, and if they didn't, just take the field goal.
Oh, okay. That could work.
Lincoln, do you want to say anything to the Pac-12 right now?
Oh, I'll just say that
But before you do,
okay,
I'm going to go ahead and I got your fine right here.
Oh, thank you. I was gonna say.
I got your fine.
If you toss it to me, I can catch
I got it. I don't want to show my nipples. That is a 10K right there.
Oh,
This,
on brand.
this makes what I
That is
have to
on
say a
brand.
lot easier.
You can't see, but I'm winking at the camera. So the floor is yours. You're fine in hand, as I tweeted out that I would do. So I'm doing it for you right now.
I was gonna say that I was proud of myself for not ripping into the refs a little bit more after in my post-game press conference, but now having the money here, it makes it a little bit easier.
Boy.
Yeah, I was trying to show some restraint. I listened back to the Pac-12 halftime show saying that they're proud and that I didn't swing, and watching it back myself, I had to show some restraint. But I'll just say that was one of the worst pieces of officiating and clock operating I've ever seen. And as I put out on Twitter, or actually, sorry, as USC Tunnel Vision host Jack Smith put out on Twitter, one of the key reasons why we will be leaving the Pac-12 for the Big Ten, and we will not regret it. So that's just all I have to say. Thank you for the money. I'm sure this will eventually end up in the hands
Can you
of the
flash that
Pac-12.
bands to the camera?
Here we go.
Let 'em know.
This is the money that the Pac-12 now owns.
Come on, Lincoln. You got to flush it a little bit. Come on.
you know what was funny?
Yeah. Come on.
Wait, get a little.
So if
Audio
USC
action.
if USC fans can remember back to like the Steve Sarkisian days, I forget, it might have been a Stanford game. I forget which game it was, but complaining to the refs, and Pat Hayden, the athletic director at the time, comes down on the field and is complaining to the refs. It became like a meme. It was just like this funny thing. Mike Bowden didn't come down on the field, complain to the refs. They did a little passive aggressive. He retweeted.
I got the bone retweet.
I got one. You got one.
I had a
LA Times, I think Orange County Register, like he retweeted a bunch of us. I think Stuart Cravens, he recruited, when anyone was saying like, holy cow, that was just terrible, he was retweeting it all. So that was pretty funny. He even mentioned, like, I was listening to Pat Forty, his podcast, and he'd mentioned that, that they were doing that. So it's kind of funny. Like national people were talking about, like when they were talking about all the games, they're like, wow, Michigan State, Michigan, big brawl in the thing. Actually, 4 players just got suspended from that. Michigan State
really?
players. Tennessee thumping
Kentucky.
Kansas State shutting out Oklahoma State. There's like kind of cool storylines. USC has this terrible, like the storyline about the USC Arizona game was this terrible, call before half. So it's like, that's not what you want if you're the Pac-12. That's not what you want your game to be branded as. Like everyone just talking about that call and not like what happened on the field.
But my point was on the airport podcast, the silver lining, it was on Pac-12 Network.
Yes.
So nobody saw it really. Because I was communicating with our national desk and I was like, can you grab what happened at the end of half? They were like, I don't have Pac-12 Network. What happened? So it just kind of sums up everything. So
Yeah.
I laid it out and he was like, on it. So yeah, wild. And I guess that's the bright side. Nobody really saw it.
That's true. The tree falling in the forest.
Yes.
I didn't pull the Mike Bone retweet, but I did put out a tweet at halftime, kind of just a collection of things that were just really weird about the first half, which included things from the broadcast. I don't know if you know this, Chris, they interviewed Rob Gronkowski mid-USC drive, said nothing about the drive, I think, until USC scored a touchdown. And it was just like, it's just so weird. And that tweet was liked and retweeted by some interesting names. Like there were a couple people inside the USC building. They had Matt Barkley, I think, retweeted it. It's kind of like if you need, I think I pretty much said like if you need examples for why USC is leaving the Pac-12 for the Big Ten, like tonight is the perfect case study.
Yeah.
It's just I've never seen anything like the end of the first half, and I mean props to USC for coming out and not letting it kind of get them down for the rest of the game, because they came out in the second half. The defense wasn't perfect, but they played a little bit more ferociously. The offense continued to click. I think something like that where it's just, if you're a player too, you're just like, we did everything right to get down into the red zone here, and you guys just screwed us out of a possession, and they get the ball to start the half. I think that you got to give a little bit of credit to the players, at least, for staying focused and being able to come out and play a good second half.
Yeah. I want to give props to the offensive line because I thought they played a really good game. I know Arizona is not a great defense. That's an understatement. They were an awful defense, but they played well. I thought Mason Murphy did a good job. He had that one holding call. Obviously, it took away a touchdown. But and Travis Dye, another 100-yard game. He had a leap over the top, a little Marcus Allen kind of touchdown there, like that. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can nitpick stuff on the offense, but I thought they did a really nice job. So they can kind of get tuned up the next couple of weeks heading into the UCLA game.
Are we just throwing out props?
I just wanted to throw props because I thought we were going to talk about the defense because there's not going to be as many props.
Props to Bryson Shaw.
Yeah, there you go.
I like
I
that.
mean, heck of a play. Maryland boy, shout out DMV. With that Maryland twang that he has, great talker. And as you mentioned, not the greatest night for the defense, but they made some plays, and that was the biggest play that they made. Just, getting an interception, stopping a promising drive for that Arizona offense, not Arizona State. And it was a momentum-changing play that let USC, get a little tighter on that neck and grip them a little bit more and get further along in the game. So, and that goes back to coaching. Bryson Shaw was like, Alex Grinch was hitting that play all week to me, like, look for this, look for this, look for this, look for this. Saw the formation out on the field, knew what to do. Became instinct. You hit it all week in practice, knows what's happening. Bam, he's in the right spot to make the play. So I know Alex Grinch still getting a lot of heat for the last 2 weeks and that defense, but that goes back to coaching, and he put him in position to make that play. And Bryson himself gave Grinch a lot of credit for setting him up for success in that moment.
Yeah, 7 tackles, a tackle for loss, and that big interception. He was also, I thought the DBs themselves did a little bit better tackling, and he kind of was a catalyst for that. I remember seeing a couple times where he was the only guy in the area, and he brought the guy down within 1 or 2 yards, the opposing player, and I was like, that didn't happen against Utah. So Bryson Shaw, a spark, and then you mentioned the twang. I had never heard him talk before, since I don't think he's been media available since I got here, and I was not expecting the Southern accent. I didn't know a whole ton about the way Bryson Shaw talked. So when I went back to watch the post-game press conference, it kind of surprised me.
He spoke at the media day they did before the season. Obviously, we thought he was going to have a bigger role, but he had that torn quad in summer camp, so he has been not healthy, and he's finally healthy. So I'm excited to see what that expanded role is going to look like for number 27. Maybe they'll use a little more dime against more, wide receiver heavy offenses. So I think he's carving out a role for himself. He has experience, was a starter at Ohio State for that Rose Bowl team. So he's got some talent, got some twang. So we'll see what that looks like in the final stretch of the season.
Yeah, overall, I mean, the defense, again, 2 weeks in a row, over 500 yards, not ideal. We know this was a very good Arizona offense. I thought Jaden DeLora played well. He would escape, and similar to what Caleb Williams can do, can just get away from pressure. And I thought he had like 400 yards rushing at some point. And he only had like 50 something, but he was making some making up third downs with his feet. Singer was catching. He had 3 touchdowns. Amazing. That first catch, the one-handed touchdown was amazing. There was good. I thought there was good coverage on a lot of these plays. But just in general, USC being out, Eric Gentry and Ralen Goforth. So you mostly saw Shane Lee, who's not the best in coverage kind of things, and you're obviously going to do a lot of coverage when you're playing the Wildcats. And to Stephen Nomura, we didn't really see other people at the linebacker spot. We saw a lot of dime being played, and we saw guys like Nick Figueroa dropping back into coverage. So they were trying to do some different things. A little concerned. I don't know what you guys think about, like, we didn't see Rajon Davis, or we didn't see Chris Thompson. We didn't see guys that could play that spot that you would think, okay, this one's out, the next one comes in. Nope, they're gonna shuffle the defense. Just like, it's not like the next man up. It was more of like, okay, we're gonna do something different, which maybe a little concerning. I don't know if it's what the reasons would be, but if you don't feel confident enough that these guys can come in off the bench and contribute, they're gonna try to figure something else out. But I thought the secondary played pretty good. Their coverage was good, but man, there was some really great plays by Arizona's wide receiver core, and Jaden DeLora. He had some screw ups, but he also had some really great plays too. But I don't know what you guys think about the defense and just kind of the way the rotation was or lack thereof, and what you saw.
It wasn't great. Let's just be upfront. It wasn't great.
Yeah,
but I will say that Jaden DeLora really exacerbated a lot of the issues they were having, because there were times where they had him dead to rights, and he made a play, and he extended it, and he rolled out, and he found a busted coverage, or he found a receiver that got caught looking in the backfield, was moving up, and hit him down the field. So when you play a quarterback like that, that's why scrambling quarterbacks in college football work so well. They can create something special out of chaos or things going bad. That's why you should recruit scrambling quarterbacks. For what we saw on the field on Saturday night, 2 scrambling quarterbacks, 2 dual threats going at it. And, USC did get him on the ground a couple times, but there was like at least 4 times where they had him and they just could not get him down. And I mentioned this on the podcast as well. USC left 2 picks on the field. Caleb Bullock had that diving interception. He said it was like a weird angle, so it was really hard, but he had the opportunity. And then Jacoby Covington probably is coming down with one, but he collides with Caleb Bullock. And, it was an incomplete pass, but that's probably a turnover if they don't collide. So we could be looking at a USC defense with 3 picks at the end of the night that just were a little bit off. And, Jaden DeLora, as I mentioned, that scrambling ability really made them pay. Grinch has mentioned this. Even when you do everything right for the defense, you all do your assignment, a guy who can move will make you pay and will make things go bad for you. And he will make you pay for doing things right. So that's kind of what the case has been with these scrambling quarterbacks that they've faced. So I thought the pressure was much better, but Jaden was just so good at getting out of it. They did have a couple really nice sacks. Nick Figueroa, Shane Lee one-handed. He said, I just grabbed onto him and just held on tight.
Yeah.
That's how he did it. So
Grab a body part and don't let go.
yeah. Hang on for dear life. So, Jaden really was the focal point for making everything look so bad for that defense, and really talented wide receiver Cole. That was a really bad matchup, if you will. But I thought they did get pressure on him. They did make him move, but he was just too good to bring down on that first contact or that first attempt.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there were a lot of yards allowed, but for a decent stretch of the game, I thought the USC defense did a good job not allowing points where they were forcing either mistakes from Jaden DeLora or field goal attempts. And then I think the turning point was you had the Bryson Shaw interception, but then USC scores on one play, onside kicks, doesn't recover, and now you've got the USC defense after like a play going right back onto the field, having to defend on a shorter field than normal. And after that, with Arizona was just kind of able to move the ball very well. But as I tweeted out, it's hard to defend one-hand catches from these crazy wide receivers. Dorian Singer, who was supposed to be the third best guy, ends up having the biggest day. T-Mac had a great catch down the sideline. Of course, Jacob Cowing was hard to guard at times, but I thought the USC defense obviously did not have a good game. But I thought they did okay at limiting points for a stretch there, and then also it's just hard sometimes to defend these great wide receivers. I thought Mekhi Blackman, Sierra Wright, some of these other corners had some good plays, but eventually we knew that these Arizona wide receivers were going to win some battles. I didn't expect it to be the one-hand catch variety, diving in the end zone all the time, but I thought that the defense, while it wasn't a great performance, there were definitely some positives with Bryson Shaw, and Tui Tuipulotu had some pressure. He forced a holding call on what might have been a sack. Solomon Byrd chasing down Jaden DeLora at the sticks despite another hold missed on him. So I thought that the defense had some better plays than against Utah, but also wasn't the best day, obviously allowing over 500 yards again.
And I think what we know about this defense is they're going to give up yards. You just have to force negative plays. You get a couple turnovers, you get 5 sacks, like you're killing drives along the way. And the drives you don't kill, the opponent's probably scoring. But you got to kill those drives somehow. They're not coming up with 3-and-out stops a lot. Like you're just not seeing that. You got to get some more negative plays. So you get 2 sacks in this one, I think, a couple sacks.
Yeah, it was 2.
You get the 1 interception, and that was enough. You just didn't get that against Utah, right? Like you weren't able to get those kind of stops. So you got to do a little bit more of that. So if you're going to give up big plays, that's fine. Like it's your offense can score. Like I don't think it hurts you that much as long as you're forcing the negative plays. So keep doing that, and I think the defense will be fine.
And you said it earlier that you were fine with the onside kick. I didn't like the call.
You didn't? Okay.
I thought I was kind of what. Yeah, sorry, Lincoln.
Bold of you to go against my choices.
It's right
but
here.
Yeah,
I might limit your media availability this week.
You get
Practice close.
Yeah.
You get 2 huge plays and 2 consecutive plays. You get the pick, you make them pay next play with a touchdown, and you're rolling. Just to give them some life back was. I know if you get it, we're talking about how ballsy, gutsy play, and USC probably marches down the field, scores, steps on their neck, and that game's probably over. But they get it.
Yeah.
But they get it, and it's homecoming, and you just give them some life. You're like, oh, okay, that is that feels like a shift right back to them because you had all the momentum and you just gave it right back, especially with the offense that was moving the ball and great wide receivers, and you were struggling to bring down Jaden. I'm pushing him back. I'm giving him more yards to go. I'm giving him more of an opportunity to make a mistake down the field. So, I would not have done that, but I'm also not a head coach. I'm not a Power 5 head coach or anything like that. But I am 1 for 1 in my career onside kick attempts. I will throw that out there.
Nice. Very
but
cool.
I wouldn't have done it. I would have just kicked it off, make them touch back, make them drive longer. You give it to them right there in the middle, and give them.
Well, they were kicking from the 50, right? They got the penalty, so it was like
Right.
So you had. I'd like to do something weird there, like if it's maybe a little pooch that's like 20 yards, you try to run under or something.
He
Or
said they just didn't get. It's hard on turf.
yeah,
Because he
So
said
then
he thought Dennis kicked it good. They just didn't get the bounce.
Yeah.
And it's harder on turf, which is another reason for me. Like, I don't like turf onside kicks, so I'm just gonna not do it.
Yeah. If
So
you're super confident in your ability to do it, it worked in practice a bunch of times. Like I don't have an issue with it, but
Defend yourself, Lincoln.
yeah.
Well, I will say thank you for understanding that you are not a Power 5 head coach. That being said, I wanted to at least extend an offer to you. Caleb mentions all the time, just how much your swim coaching helps him be one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. So I'd like to personally offer you a position as our quarterback swim coach starting next season. If you want to, you can come meet me in my office, do a formal interview. But I think we would have a spot for you on this coaching staff. But yeah, the onside,
Right, I'm out.
the onside kick. I think, I don't know, I'm impartial on the decision. Of course, they had all the momentum.
Boo,
You can
take a stand.
Fine. You can argue it either way. I think it makes sense, especially with what happened at the end of half. I think USC felt like they could really just step on the necks of Arizona. And of course, if you don't get it, you're giving Arizona some momentum. But with the field position, with the two big plays in a row, the Bryson Shaw interception and the deep touchdown to Taj Washington, you could really win the game right there. So I was fine with the decision. It didn't work out, and that's not great. But I think you'd see a lot more USC fans saying, "Oh, look at Lincoln Riley making that decision to onside kick. Like, look at USC; they've got all the momentum now." So I think it's one of those decisions where it sounds good in the moment. Of course, when it doesn't work out, you're going to have people saying they don't like it. But I personally was fine
like
with
Oregon did it against UCLA in a game you could tell early on that was going to just be all they were doing is trying to steal a possession, and they saw something on film and it worked. Maybe if you're kicking from the 50, the other team's on the alert. If you're just kicking regular, maybe they wouldn't be on the alert for an onside kick. Something like that. I don't know, but
Is the chat chiming in? I'm interested to see what they're
Let's
saying.
see, we've got.
I think most people are agreeing with you. I think most people don't like the onside kick call. I think just from me glancing.
Yeah,
over
we've got a
it.
couple.
Well, that's just like hindsight, I want to find the person that was like, even though he did it, even though it happened that way, I'm still okay.
I'm trying
with
not to think of the results.
Yeah, I mean, here's the way I look at it.
Like, what if that didn't work and UCLA scores? Like,
But that's what it is with
is Dan Lanning an idiot, or were they like he was brilliant because that was a great onside kick and they like take a 2-touchdown lead instead?
That's what onside kicks are. Either you're a dope or you're brilliant. That's the only way it happens.
Yeah,
It's a you win big or you lose big. That's it. That's all it is with onside kicks.
And
I
not
got
to
a fuzzy wig in my mouth. Okay,
not to be rude to my personal friend and colleague Alex Grinch, but at that point in the game, sitting there watching on the TV, or Chris, you there in person, did it really feel like USC was going to get a stop and not allow points no matter where Arizona started with the ball? Like, they could have started with the ball on their own 10-yard line, and I think it would have, a lot of drives were going to end in a touchdown. That just kind of felt like the way the game was going to go. Of course, it makes it easier.
There wasn't as much risk because you're starting from midfield, and Arizona's probably going to score anyway. So,
But
start at the 20 versus the 35. I don't know.
But my counterpoint is this offense is kind of one of those this defense is a defense that kind of feeds off that. They just got a pick for their offense. The offense just scored in one play. They're like, all right, we get this ball back. They're going to put it down. They're going to step on their throats, and it's done. Let's get this ball back. Let's get them out. Let's force the punt. Let's really put them in the grind. I would argue that they're going to come out even more intense than we've seen them, but now they're coming out at midfield and they're like, ugh, we've been struggling all night to do this, and now they just cut their field in half. That's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
No, I think it makes sense. And then the game gets a lot closer than you would expect, and USC at the end has to convert on a 4th and 1 Caleb Williams run. After the Bryson Shaw interception and the touchdown, it kind of felt, and I saw a lot of people on Twitter saying, oh, USC's going to run away with this one. Then the onside kick happens, a couple quick touchdowns for Arizona. USC has a rare 3 and out. It was really weird. The last thing before we get to calls and questions, there were a couple things where I thought that USC separated themselves, and that was on 3rd down and in the red zone, where we thought the game was going to come down to USC scored 5 touchdowns on 5 red zone trips and limited Arizona to only 3 touchdowns on 5 red zone trips. And I wrote it down here. I'm trying to find the stats now. USC was 2 of 2 on 4th down and 11 of 17 on 3rd down, whereas Arizona 1 for 2 on fourth down, 6 for 13 on third down. So that's kind of where the game separated itself. It only ended up being an 8-point game, which, Ryan, I know got you another spread win, but it ended up being
11,
a lot closer game. And when it's an 8-point game, you got to look at the red zone and you got to look at third down.
Yeah, 11 third down conversions. I think that's like a record or something, or it's like I looked up Pac-12 stats. I mean, that's a lot of third down conversions. So, and 2 on fourth down. So pretty impressive. I thought this would just be closer. Knew some guys were going to be out. That's why I thought that Arizona would cover, and they did. But it could have gone the other way for sure. But yeah, I mean, I don't think this is a win. If you're a USC fan and you're upset, you're like, you got a good win on the road. It's not easy to win. It's not like Arizona rolled over and died. They're a much better team than the 1-11 squad they were last year. So yeah, you go in there, you get a win. Could have been more comfortable than it was, but your quarterback has a record performance. You got to, you're home for the rest of the way now. I just say like, hey, you did what you need to do. You're 7-1, heading home, and you got a long homestand, homecoming, all that stuff, and then some rivalry games, and you can really make a special run in November. Pete Carroll made hay by not losing in November, and if USC doesn't lose in November, they're 11-1 on this season, and you're looking at like, oh, is it? They give up 500-something yards to Arizona. Like, no, you don't care at that point. You're 11-1, so kind of on schedule for that. That's what you want to look at.
Hey.
Yeah, so let's get some questions.
Yeah, there's one thing I want to outline, which is, before we get there, we talk a lot about the Pac-12 refs screwing over USC, which has happened a lot in the past couple of weeks. I think that USC very much caught a break on that one call against Caleb Williams on the sideline. I don't know where you were for that one, Chris, but it looked like maybe a tiny late bump out of bounds on a third down where USC was going to have to kick a field goal and give it back to Arizona in a chance where if Arizona scores a touchdown, they're in the lead. So I don't want everyone to think that we are very one-sided, and the Pac-12 refs are clearly not one-sided, as they definitely, I think, made it a lot harder for Arizona to complete a comeback that they were trying to make. And that was a call that I haven't seen the replay of yet since yesterday, but something that I tweeted out immediately, like, Arizona fans, we've talked a lot about the officiating one way the last couple of weeks. It's just another time where the Pac-12 refs made an impact on a game in a bad way for the other school this time.
I was on the opposite side. I didn't really see what was going on.
Yeah.
And I heard someone say, like, they're calling that.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my inclination. It was not a very good call. I don't remember them putting it up on the board because I would have watched it. But, maybe it's a makeup call.
And that's, people are saying makeup call. I'm like, they would have to be competent enough to understand what they did wrong and then be competent enough to execute a makeup call. I just don't think they are. It was a terrible call. And for USC fans, it was the same sort of feeling. USC's offense was just rolling, right? Arizona couldn't get a stop. The one time you get a stop, like 2 weeks ago at Utah, they get a stop. They get an interception in the end zone, and you get it wiped away from a penalty. Arizona finally gets a stop. USC's going to have to kick a field goal in the red zone. Nope, 1st and 10, and they get a touchdown the very next play. Like, it had a very similar feeling to, like, you essentially gave points to the other team. Like, the officials shouldn't have, USC shouldn't have got a touchdown. They should have got a field goal or a field goal attempt, and they had already missed 2 field goals. So, yeah, it was a very similar feeling to what USC fans were experiencing on the Utah game, where it's hard to get a stop. You finally get one, and the refs take it away.
It's always when you get a stop.
Yeah.
It's never like when Arizona's roughing the passer call earlier, where I believe it was Hunter Echols just leveled Caleb Williams as he's throwing the ball and it's a touchdown. It's never when it's that, really. It's always when you get a massive stop or an interception or something great happens for the defense. It's never when you give up a touchdown.
Yeah. Real quick, did Hunter Echols do anything in this? Because I know he was chirping. You were like tweeting
At the final tackle.
He had the final tackle.
After Caleb
I believe
Williams
he had 2 tackles.
Okay.
And a roughing the passer. I believe that was him on the roughing the passer.
Okay.
I think that's about right. That was a tremendous play by Caleb Williams. You're not going to see someone stand in the pocket more firm than that all season. He took a shot and kind of delivered it right to where Taj Washington was. That was, in my opinion, probably his best play of the night.
You probably saw it on the broadcast if you watched the game, but after he picks up the first down to seal it, after they get the onside kick, Caleb's going crazy, like yelling and screaming and like, yeah, maybe like a little Macho Man.
Macho Man.
And it was directed, I believe, at Hunter Echols, who made the tackle on him.
Right.
and who was jawing at the team twice in pregame. So, yeah, that had to feel very good to not only seal it yourself, but the guy who was talking trash all night to you has to tackle you and you know it's over.
I almost put my prediction that Hunter Echols was going to get like a tackle for loss or something. And I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. But I'm glad I didn't because he didn't do much.
Yeah, let's get to some live callers. We'll start it off with Nick from Virginia.
Oh, the VA.
Nick, you're on Tunnel Vision.
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call. I had a question for you guys. Ryan, you've alluded to this before, that USC has the best road win in the Pac-12, which I agree. Obviously, it'd be Oregon State. But I would also argue that USC has the best loss, maybe in the country, a game in which they trailed for only, I think, 48 seconds. And then secondly, obviously, the AP poll came out today, which is essentially irrelevant starting on Tuesday. I'm curious, what do you guys think? USC is going to be ranked when the College Football Committee meets on Tuesday and announces their first rankings for the season. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for the call. Utah just got a road win at Washington State. That's what Oregon also has. But still, I think the Oregon State road win's the best. And you could definitely argue that USC's road loss is that's the best loss. It's a 1-point loss, like you said, under a minute, trailing in the game. I think the resumes and it's weird. Looking at what Oregon's resume is, like they look really good right now, but I think when the committee's going to come down to it, like you got absolutely pasted by Georgia. Like I don't know if you're going to put it back in there. So there's a lot of weird stuff can happen. But I think USC's in a better spot than Oregon. It's like, you can control. I think you control your own destiny more than Oregon does. USC would need less help, I think, than Oregon Ducks if either team won out. I think USC would probably need less help. And I feel like the playoff rankings are going to be sort of chalky. They might have like Tennessee number 1 just because they're going to look at the resume. I think that's probably the case. But USC's probably in that 9 range, I would think.
This is newfound territory for us because we usually don't give a crap about the college football playoff rankings because they're very...
Chris has his content schedule. It's like never had to write about where USC was in the college football rankings.
Maybe I'll watch it. But this time, there is some relevancy, and it's going to be interesting where they rank them. I feel like they're going to be, as Ryan said, in that kind of 9-12 range. That's where I feel like they might fall.
The people behind them right now are Utah and UCLA, and I think there's one more team between that 10, 11, 12. I don't see them jumping Utah or UCLA over USC. Of course, Utah has the win over, or UCLA has the win over Utah, and Utah has the win over UCLA. But again, both those teams' losses, I think, are worse. So I would assume that USC might stay exactly at 9. I think Tennessee should be 1 in the AP, and I assume that they go to 1 because they've got that resume. USC also has, if you call it the best road win, it is now also a ranked win as Oregon State has come into the rankings, which prior USC didn't have a top 25 win. So I think it'll be interesting. I don't think they're going to have quite the resume that some teams will, even if they go 11-1 and win the Pac-12 championship. They will need some help, but I don't think that they're going to get punished for that right now. Like I still think they come in 9 in the CFP.
Yeah, and look at those top 4 teams, the ones that are in the AP poll is like 8, 9, 10, 12 or whatever. Like that's where the 4 Pac-12 teams are: USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Utah. They are, I think Wilner tweeted this out, they are 15-0 against the remaining Pac-12. So those 4 teams, and that's what you want. Like you want those 4 teams. You have 4 teams in the Pac-12 that are in the top 12 of the AP poll. That's great, So you have that. Will any of those 4 lose to one of the other teams? Oregon State, like Oregon has to go to Oregon State. There's some tough games in there. Of course, you're gonna have them play each other. Utah goes to Oregon, USC plays UCLA. So there'll be
same weekend.
Yeah, crazy stuff.
Yeah, you've got. I think that's there's a couple of matchups too outside of the Pac-12 as well. You're going to have this week Tennessee and Georgia. So some teams going to lose there. Some teams going to lose between Ohio State and Michigan. So I think USC, they're going to need some help. But as long as we mentioned last week, as long as they control their own destiny, win the games that they need to, they'll put themselves in a good position. Let's go to Thomas from Malibu. Hi, Thomas. You're on Tunnel Vision.
Hey, guys. First of all, great show. It's been a wonderful year. I wanted to call because I was too afraid to put this on the P because of all the coaching geniuses that we have on there, so I thought I'd just call in. And I want Ryan to please let me know. Maybe I'm mistaken. I thought we were 4-8 last year. I thought we spent the summer talking about how in the world are we going to stop anyone. To hear people at 7-1 with one loss in the final seconds at Utah. If you would have told me this a year ago, everyone would have been ecstatic. So to Lincoln Riley, to Alex Cringe, to everyone, keep recruiting. To Carol Fall, to Mike Bone, and more importantly, Rick Caruso, who wrote the check. Thank you for bringing Lincoln Riley here. Guys, we could be 11-1 after Thanksgiving. Could you imagine that? We could possibly be 11-1. Absolutely amazing. Keep up the good show, gentlemen. Thank you so much, and fight on.
Thanks, Thomas, and the Boo, Malibu.
I like that guy.
I do.
He needs to call more.
I pretty much said what Thomas said. Maybe you didn't hear at the beginning of the show. I pretty much said the same thing. But yeah, you're 100% right that, I think you're so used to being able, you USC fans wanted to be really good. This is a market, it's a huge improvement over last year. It's, it's not just the 4-8. It's just look at this team and see what's going on. There's not blowout losses. It was, like you said, like a 1-point loss. The team has flaws. I've been saying that from the beginning. They're not going to take over a bad team with bad chemistry and fix everything right away. But he fixed a lot of stuff. And what I've been saying for a long time is it's not good enough to win the national championship. This team's not going to be good enough. They could squeak into the college football playoff and not, probably not be competitive, whatever. But that's a huge jump. That's pretty impressive. But they are good enough to win the conference. I think Oregon's looking really good right now. UCLA, man, their defense, it's not good, but the offense, man, is special. They can run it down your throats. So I think there's some really good competition at the top of the league, but still USC is good enough to score a bunch of points on all those guys. So yeah, I think you got to look back at what it was like last year. You hired a great coach, you recruited a bunch of good guys, you transferred in a bunch of good guys. And it's a pretty, special team. It's a fun team to watch. You have fun with it. Have fun watching this team. And they're winning a bunch of games. So, yeah, the worst they're going to do this year is 9-3. That's if the bottom falls out, they're going to go 9-3. And probably 10-2 and potentially 11-1. So, that's pretty special.
If you want to feel better, just think of the dark times.
Yeah. Which was a year ago.
Think of that Rose Bowl loss a couple years ago.
Go back and watch Stanford running all over USC. Go watch Oregon State. Go watch Cam Rising celebrating on the Coliseum field, FaceTiming his mom. All the stuff that was going on. They lost to Cal. All those things. Look at that and go back and go, yeah, this is a lot different. This is very, very different.
Remember the UCLA fans chanting, "Extend Clay Helton."
Yes. UCLA scoring 60 points or whatever it was. Yeah. Remember all that stuff and go, yeah, things are pretty good.
Yeah, and even if USC goes 11-1 and doesn't make the college football playoff, I think fans would take a Rose Bowl appearance after not appearing in a bowl the last 2 seasons. I have a feeling that they would be okay with that. We've got a couple more calls. Let's go to Dave from Iowa. Hi, Dave. You're on Tunnel Vision.
Hi, guys. First of all, great win yesterday. It was finally great to see the depth offensively and just take advantage of, a less talented Arizona team. I got 2 questions. Ryan, in terms of the Pac-12 refs, now I understand we're going to be leaving in 2 years, but how come the Pac-12 commissioner didn't just, cherry pick off the best refs in the SEC and the Big Ten and just have them ref our games? How come he didn't do that? And second, guys, I know we're all happy, but it really disappoints me when JT Tuimoloau, a 5-star defensive end from against Penn State, just demolishes them. 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, and a touchdown on Saturday, and Korey Foreman's nowhere to be seen. Right now he's looking more like a liability than an asset. What are we going to do?
Thanks, Dave, for the question. I think Wilner had written about the officiating. There's not really a farm system. A lot of other schools you work with, if the SEC works with the Sun Belt or something, where you sort of bring up the best officials from the lower conference and then bring them into your conference. I think the Big 12 and the Mountain West might have some kind of agreement. I think it's a broken system, and they needed to fix it for a long time. I think Klyavkov, when he came in, I liked some of the moves he made, but I remember asking him about the officiating, and he sort of was like, he admitted a lot of issues with the conference and didn't really admit that one. So maybe it just wasn't really on top of mind. I think now he's seeing it. You're seeing a lot more. But they definitely have a problem. So it's not just, they don't have a system in place where they could go out and hire better officials. I think that's part of the deal. They've screwed it up for so long that they've fixed some things and things got better for a little while, but it's not better, and it needs work. But
and to your
JTT?
second point, I thought his question or his comment was going to be that missing out on JTT and not a Korey Foreman diatribe about that. But you should be pissed as a USC fan that a kid like JTT is not at USC, because that is a kid that USC should never lose to. A West Coast kid, a kid who grew up a USC fan, who that was his dream school growing up. He has connections to there. His family's from the region. That is a kid that USC should not lose out. But because of the way the program was, we just talked about it. Remember the dark times. That is a kid that USC should not lose to. That's what you should be more mad about, I think, is that a kid like that is at Ohio State or is going to an Alabama or going to a Tennessee or wherever. Those are the kids that Lincoln Riley is going to stop them from taking in the future. That's what I think you should be more. That is what I think the point should be. Not about Korey Foreman. You can have all the talent in the world, but once you get on the field, once the coaching gets to you, you got to go out and do it. So I think shouldn't be part of it. I think it's more should have gotten JGT.
Yeah, and I think just feel good that you have a coach now that's going to give you the best shot possible of keeping the best talent on the West Coast here. And you didn't have a coach before that was able to do that. Now you do. And, that could be bad news for the Ohio States and the Texases and the Georgias and all that. You saw that with that tight end, the Georgia tight end was he from Napa Valley or some crap like that? Like the
Brock Bowers.
In some ways like 6'7", 500 pounds and just make bouncing catches all over the place. Yeah, you want those guys on the West Coast. You want them to stay home and go to USC. So you now have a head coach. We have him right here with us that he can do that. So you should feel happy about that.
Yeah, I'll say we'll try our best to hit on all those prospects in California. We got one more caller. Let's go to Curtis from Moreno Valley. Hey, Curtis, you're on Tunnel Vision.
Hey, guys. How's everybody? The last game just showed, and that was a good offense we were against. The quarterback was amazing. We got to start using a spy, maybe with a DB right now while our defense is hurt like this. On every down, this guy was too dangerous. He ran all over us. We can't anyway, against the best teams, it's going to come down to our offense running the ball to work the clock or running slower drives to kill the clock so the other team can't have it. That's the only way we'll be able to beat the better teams. But I think we have a puncher's chance against anybody.
Thanks, Curtis. I just drove through Moreno Valley, by the way, coming back from the desert. So I think of you when I drive through Moreno Valley. He's a regular caller on our podcast shows. USC's utilized the spy before. I think maybe with some of the injuries now, we haven't seen that as much. But I think Shotgun was kind of talking about that at some point, too. I forget who was spying some of the time. But
I think it was Eric Gentry.
It might have been, so Gentry not there.
It helps that your most athletic linebacker was out. So
it doesn't help. Yeah.
Well,
it doesn't help. That's what I meant.
Yes.
There was an athletic linebacker that we talked to this week that said he was told to practice like a starter, and we went the entire week thinking that we were going to see Rajon Davis on the field, and I don't know the exact snap count and think Shotgun will get it to us, but I don't remember seeing him once. That was one thing I was really surprised by, because when we talked with him, when we talked with some of the coaches, it sounded like Rajon Davis was going to play, and then he ended up, I don't think, getting a single snap. So that was one thing I was surprised by, and people mentioned it in the Utah game, was like his skill set is supposed to be uber athlete, can play in coverage, maybe could have helped out with Dalton Kincaid, maybe could have helped out spying Cam Rising or Jaden Delora yesterday. I was really surprised not to see Rajon Davis, especially after the way he spoke this week, the way coaches spoke about him this week. That was honestly one thing that shocked me. If there was a takeaway from the defense, player-wise, substitution-wise, that was one thing I was really surprised by.
Not to get too meta, but isn't that your decision?
Well, I don't want to I don't want to make the defensive decisions. I already make all the offensive decisions.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a pure dictator, but I do remember my comments this week about Rajon Davis on the cusp of getting some big playing time. I think that's exactly what I said. And yeah, I guess I was a little bit surprised to see he wasn't put out there, even though I'm the head coach.
I wonder if it had anything to do with them playing a lot of dime, and you essentially only have one linebacker because you're taking off one for an extra safety.
Yeah.
So would they want the only linebacker out there to be a young guy with no career starts and not a lot, isn't wet behind the ears, and they go with the veteran and Shane Lee? Maybe that had something to do with it.
Well, I think the decision to go to dime had to do with the fact that maybe they didn't want a guy like Rajon Davis on the field because they were down to so few linebackers. I think that's why they ended up going with dime. And I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was Max Williams or Bryson Shaw after the game saying that they planned all week that they were going to use that dime package a lot, which then makes it seem like Rajon Davis wasn't going to play for a lot of the week, which I don't know. It was definitely just surprising to me, especially with the way that he was spoken about this week and the way he spoke to us after practice.
And I think, USC's faced some dynamic quarterbacks, like how many weeks in a row, right? Well, now you're not going to. Like now, Cal just played Kai Milner, like in the fourth quarter. He actually looked a lot better than Jack Plummer, the Purdue transfer for the Golden Bears. And then Colorado's been a mess, but they've tried 3 different quarterbacks, but I think they've gone to the young guy. Was it I forget his Stroud or whatever? But I think you're not going to see the kind of like dynamic playmaking quarterbacks that you've seen over the last several weeks. So maybe you do see. Maybe they'll trust a guy like Davis more. And I don't know. We'll see. But it could have been the dime thing. But I thought we would see more of those guys, and we just haven't. But this might be. Now you're going to face 2 offenses that aren't very good. Like Cal scored 49 against Arizona for some reason, and then they've just been awful pretty much the rest of the way. So I think they scored 24 against Oregon yesterday, but I think 2 of them, like it was like Milner in the fourth quarter got a couple touchdowns, but they weren't very good on offense.
I keep thinking you're saying Wilner.
No, Milner. Yeah. It's Kai Milner, right? I think I forget his name, but whatever. That's
I'm just saying. I'm hearing Wilner.
He's like the younger whatever. They put him in the fourth quarter. But Colorado's bad, obviously. So, yeah, I think you can try some different stuff on defense the next 2 weeks, potentially.
And you can get your confidence back.
Yes.
But you got to, USC's going to have to be ready to defend a mobile quarterback again if they want to make it all the way through the Pac-12 championship game. They got to first start by beating DTR and UCLA. And most likely, if you match up in the Pac-12 championship game with Oregon, Bo Nix is a guy who's been running the ball very well for Oregon this year. So it's something that's been an Achilles heel for USC so far. And something that, on the practice field, we got to start figuring out. And I got to take some responsibility that the guys weren't prepared to stop a mobile quarterback. But I assure you, we're going to keep working at it in the future.
It's Kai Milner. Yeah.
Kai Milner.
Milner, sorry.
We can go rapid fire through some questions to wrap this one up. So we've got this one. Question: do y'all think the offense should be adjusted to feature the running game primarily? And I'll match that one up with another question where someone asks, do you think that they need to rely on the running game even more to keep the defense off the field and play more of a possession game as opposed to we're going to try and go score 50 points with Caleb Williams in our passing offense kind of game?
I think offense is too good to mess it up. Like, do your offense. Your offense is go fast, throw the ball over the field, run when you want to, score a bunch of points. Like, I don't think you got to change it to try to, help the defense. I think if the offense was struggling and you're just going 3 and out really quick, that's one thing. So run the ball 3 times instead and take some clock.
Yeah, just adjust accordingly. And it seemed like that they did that. Let's keep the ball out of Delores' hands. And we suddenly just remembered that this run defense is one of the worst in the country. So let's run the leading Pac-12 rusher down their throat.
And it was Cortland Ford came in and they started running the ball more too. I've noticed that before. We've talked about that, but I don't think you want to handcuff the offense at all. Don't say, well, you got to run the ball. I know Curtis said that too. No, the offense is great. Let the offense be great. Defense, figure it out. You do what you want to situationally, but don't handcuff the offense because you want it to be something else.
Yeah, another question from Big T37 on YouTube. He says, did it feel like the passing game was more fluid with Caleb not zeroing in on just Addison and Mario Williams?
I think it was more fluid because he wasn't getting chased all over the place.
I think that's a good point. I think that, usually he's looking at those first reads, which are Mario and Jordan. So now when everyone seems like anyone could be the first read. So I think it's more so, I got all these different guys that spread the ball around. It did seem to be more fluid in that sense.
But I think he got to set his feet more. Like he just wasn't being chased. So
yeah, that helps with facing a very bad pass rush.
yeah.
And a very bad pass defense in general. But yeah, I think what you said about the offensive line earlier is a good point. First of all, no sacks allowed for USC, which I don't know how many times that's happened this season, but feels like the first time in a while. The offensive line had been having some issues, and including some injuries to guys like Andrew Vorhees this week and Bobby Haskins mid-game. Thought they held up really well. And then also, Caleb Williams has those highlights every week where he's evading tackles and sacks. Really didn't seem like there were that many this week, not because he wasn't doing it, but because he didn't need to. So I think, maybe there's something there about the fact that Caleb, when he needs to uplift his receivers, he's not working with, all conference guys at receiver. Maybe there's a little more thought into it. They started it off really easy with some dink and dunk passes to get everyone ready. And the wide receivers played really well, but I think most of it was the fact he wasn't on the run all the time and the pass defense. There were a lot of open receivers. There was a couple other questions. Andrew asks on YouTube, which game will SC be back to full health by?
I think you want to target UCLA.
Yeah, I think that's where you're circling. I mean, the way it's going, I think you could probably play some guys in the next 2 weeks that maybe you don't need to, and maybe you just wait.
You could sit Andrew for 2 weeks if you wanted.
Yeah.
Let Mason and Jonah get more burn. If Bobby Haskins is down, let Cortland take over that left tackle spot. You're accumulating more depth at that position. So, Cal's bad, Colorado's bad. Build that depth up. This is a chance for them to get wet behind the ears and be ready for what may happen down the line and get those guys ready for the Bruins.
Yeah, you want to get some backups in. They've not done a great job at getting the backups in later in the season. Try to get backups in these next 2 games.
And Chris, you were there, but I think it was Justin Dedich said that Mason Murphy is the most talented guy that they've got in the offensive line room. I was surprised to hear such high praise for Mason, and they said that they've kind of known all along that he's a really talented guy. I thought he played pretty well. He had one holding penalty that negated a long touchdown, but outside of that, I thought he played pretty well, and he might be a guy that you need to rely on to start next year. So possibly get him some experience now.
Yeah, Dedich isn't a BSer. That's a team captain, and he's going to tell like it is. So for him to say that, he means it. And you look at Mason when he came in, he's a 3-star prospect coming out of high school, athletic. He looked like a guy who could play right away the first time I saw him. Legit 6'6", 310 pounds, had that really bad ankle injury his freshman year and wasn't able to play, wasn't able to get experience there wasn't any blowout losses, there wasn't any blowout wins, but he wasn't able to get experience, and this is sort of kind of his introduction, and he's got all the talent in the world to be a guy that can play left tackle, right tackle, can even play interior. So this is a guy that's going to be key for that first season in the Big Ten, so you want to get him all the experience that you can. Maybe he moves into a starter's role next season, and by the time the Big Ten season rolls around, he could be your guy at left or right or interior.
Yep.
Yeah, there's another question about injuries. How concerned are you that Jordan Addison does not play another college game again? I've seen that opinion kind of circling around that he takes this injury as just a time to prepare for the NFL draft, thinking that, had a Blitnikoff season. He had this season so far this year. I've seen some people thinking that he might just go the route of rehabbing with the injury and just going straight into the NFL draft, that he's possibly proved everything he needs to for the draft. So I guess I'll pass that on to you guys.
From what I've heard, that is not the case.
Yeah.
I've not heard anything like that, and I like my sources. So I know that's can be a popular rumor to run with or thinking to run with, but I haven't heard any of that sort, and I think they just want to get him extra rest, and you want to get him. You need him for UCLA, and I guess his numbers are technically down, but leading receiver for this team. Get him back against, maybe Cal, maybe Colorado. Let him put up some numbers and get that rhythm back with Caleb for the showdown in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, someone asked a question. Jack, what do you grade out the DBs versus that talented wide receiver group of Arizona? I mentioned this earlier that I thought that they had even good coverage on the passes that didn't go their way with some great one-handed catches. Then Mekhi Blackman did a good job in man-to-man coverage. Of course, can't see who was responsible for every big play, but I thought that they played just about as well as you could against such a talented wide receiver group. There were plays where they really stood up. And Jaden Delora, as they mentioned in the broadcast, had a lot of incompletions. I think that was due in large part to some of the defensive backs. Maybe we can end on this one from SC Neal on YouTube. Question, what do you think of the rumored mid-90s throwback uniforms for the homecoming game?
Good.
Me?
Yeah, I'm retweeting.
Where did that rumor come from?
So USC updated their profile picture on Twitter. I don't know about other social platforms, but it's a vintage-looking cartoon USC helmet, and so everyone now believes that, just like they believe black uniforms were coming earlier this year, that there's going to be some throwback uniforms.
I don't know.
Maybe another fake out? I don't know. I haven't
They
heard
do it
anything.
Like the Friday, like Colorado game, maybe, or something, because it's already weird. But
has USC ever done like a throwback deal? Like
they've
that?
gone but it's like their old uniforms, but they haven't I don't know. I'm not a big uniform guy. Like, this stuff doesn't interest me that much, but people really get into it.
As you're wearing a uniform?
I'm wearing, well, it's a costume. I wasn't going to wear a costume, and you guys were like, you want to wear a costume? I'm like, okay, I'll wear a costume.
Guys, pick your favorite costume. Who has the best costume?
We had,
Let us know.
our buddy Anthony said this actually might be the greatest costume arrangement I've ever seen with us on there. So thank you, Anthony, for that.
I haven't had no nip slip, so I'm proud of that.
That's actually not true, but sorry to burst your bubble there.
Oh, yeah.
Bursted that nipple bubble. I apologize, but also
Someone get and the problem is they get a screenshot, too.
Nobody get that screenshot. Nobody combed through this for the nip slip. I don't need to be on TMZ.
Chris is not wearing a shirt, is what he's saying. So that's,
10K nip slip. I don't need that.
You're just assuming I haven't already screenshotted it and gotten it ready to circulate on Twitter tomorrow. Do you guys have anything else that you guys want to touch on? I think that's all we've got for comments. We've got no more callers in the queue. It's been a good Halloween episode.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a while. I felt like we had a month between games. It's been a minute.
It definitely did feel like a while.
It's good. You get a win. It's on the road. It's another weird thing after a bye week and all that. I feel like this is going to be a USC thing. Comes back home and then things start to click. Like you can get rolling against a Cal or a Colorado. And then if it's a 9-1 USC and 9-1 UCLA, bam, that's going to be great. That's going to be awesome. And that's where you want to get to. So you just got to take care of business. But I feel like tough road game, get beat up. I mean, Cam Rising didn't even play in Utah's game. Utah was pretty beat up too. So that was the game of the year in the Pac-12. USC was beat up 2 weeks later. Utah was beat up 2 weeks later. You go on the road again, back to back, and you get a win, even though it's not the prettiest thing in the world. And now you get to come home and sort of just be like, all right, we're not leaving LA for the rest of the season until you get to Las Vegas, and that's the goal. So, I think USC's a good spot. So USC fans, have fun with the season. It's good. I mean, it's way better than what you had last year. Have a good time with it. Enjoy the hell of our shows. We're going to do a lot of shows. USCfootball.com. Smash that like button. Subscribe. Tell your friends. Do it all. We're here for you guys.
Chris, everyone likes Ryan's costume more than ours.
Really?
Yeah. I think
fair.
that means that you get to keep the bag of candy.
All that tells me is that
believe it or not,
we have a age group that reflects Ryan's age group.
Well, the show's from early 1981, so before both of your times. Yeah.
10 years before I was born.
Way before my time.
Yeah.
I think that's all we've got.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I'm Lincoln Riley, so my parents were definitely born before that time.
That's true, yes.
I think that's all we've got for you guys. Ryan pretty much laid it all out. Thank you guys for watching our show. We'll be back on Thursday with Tunnel Vision and then also Sunday after the game against Cal. That's all we've got for you guys, though. We'll be at practice on Tuesday and Wednesday. Make sure you guys are looking at uscfootball.com for articles. Inside Troy right here on YouTube for more videos. That's all we've got for you guys. We'll see you on Thursday. Thanks for hanging out with us, and have a very happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Oh, yeah.